It's been a few days. Maybe it's been a couple weeks actually. It's been a few weeks, but we are back at it. We are back at it. So as soon as a few of us get in here, we get tapped in. We can really get going. You guys know I got to read that disclaimer first, and then after we take care of the disclaimer, we can go ahead and get popping. But I know it's been a few weeks, yo. Mac Mike 740, what's going on? Thanks for coming through. Thanks for coming through. But let's go ahead and take care of this disclaimer. So please note that the following is not legal or financial advice and is provided for informational and educational purposes only. Investing in securities carries a high degree of risk and can result in the loss of your entire investment. You should consult with a qualified financial advisor or legal professional before making any investment decisions. The information contained in this presentation does not constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments. Any opinions expressed in this presentation are subject to change without notice and should not be relied upon as a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. Please do your own due diligence and research before making any investment decisions. All right, y'all. So it's been a few weeks. It's been a couple of weeks. I've been out of town. I've been traveling a bit. Yo, Will, Nicole Anderson, Gearson. I see y'all. Stacy Don. Thanks for coming through. We took care of the disclaimer. Now, y'all know what I like to do. My TikTok lives are all about beginner options traders. I like to do simple, easy recaps of the trade of the day that I did. And so we could take a look at the trade of the day. Let's go ahead and bring open the Discord. I'll show y'all what I alerted, what I was looking for in the trade, and then we'll just do a little bit of a review. Short and simple. Let's go down here. We'll go to Curtis G's trades right over here. And so this morning, let me shrink this down. But of course, we got to get it to fit in the TikTok window. All right. So this morning at 7:36, or that's the profit taking. Yo, Kevin, thanks for the follow. All right. So today at 7 o'clock on the dot, and this is, of course, West Coast time. It is, of course, California time. So just keep that in mind when you see timestamps and things like that on my trading. But this morning at 7 o'clock on the dot, so 30 minutes after the market opened, I let the community know that I was getting into some Google calls at this moment in time. And then I'll show y'all the chart. This was a pretty like on the spot chart. So this is what I put into the Discord. Basically, I was looking for calls to come up to the top of this broadening formation before reaching a certain level of PT or basically resistance. Now let's go over to the live chart. We can really get down and break it down. All right, so who do we got up in here? We got a few likes. Progressive Profits with Damien. Thanks for coming through. Just Noah, I see you. Mark, what's going on, my guy? What's up? What's up? What's up? All right, let's bring it on back over to Google. Now, I actually could have and maybe should have gotten to this play a lot sooner. So, what we're looking at right now is the 30-minute chart on Google. And so, what I want to do is some of these lines actually don't need, and of course, I should have had my keyboard and my text set up already. But y'all just bear with me for a second while I kind of slide this out. While we kind of slide that right quick. All right, now I can bring this right here. But I'm pretty sure y'all can see what I was going for. Now, like I said, I could have gotten to this trade a bit earlier, as especially with this first bullish momentum candle. Now, I want to give a shout out to somebody. So if you are a new trader and you're looking for a very specific edge setup or strategy that has very point blank steps that you can follow, 7 easy steps, I'm going to show y'all somebody that I tapped in with yesterday. I incorporated his steps with my trade today and it worked out perfectly. So I want to, it's a little shameless plug, but I'm not a gatekeeper. I don't hide anything. Wherever I learn from, I like to share with other people because hopefully this information will help you out. But I want to go to the person who helped me yesterday. So it's always good to find a mentor, right? When you're trading, find somebody that knows other things than you, that knows more than you, that has more experience. But I just want to show y'all really quick the person. If you're on Twitter, this is how you could go find them. This is him right here at the top of the Twitter, right here. I tapped in. Me and this dude, we've been following each other for a while. I've been seeing him put a lot of people on, and he has a very simple, straight up, easy to understand for any trader. He has 7 steps that you check off each day to do your trade. It's simple. I incorporated with my strategy today, and it worked out like a charm. So if you hit him up, he'll break down his 7 steps for you. I don't want to step on his toes because I know he does like a presentation and things like that. So I'm not trying to step on his toes and just give away his sauce, but hit him up. So his name is Charts on Twitter, but I'm going to go into how it helped me out. So we saw this bullish candle to start off the day. Yo, Alex, thanks for coming through. This is the first candle on the 30-minute chart. And so basically, just to break it down a little bit about the strategy that I incorporated, it's really ORB, right? Opening range breakout. But there are a couple of other things that he added that I added that just you make it tailored towards you. But the long and short of it, the meat and potatoes is ORB, but there's some secret sauce in there too that you guys want to get a hold of. But basically, after I drew, and we kind of zoom out a little bit, right? Let me zoom out. Let's bring this down. So we have this kind of downside broadening formation that's happening. And I just incorporated the ORB. I could have definitely gotten sooner if I was using a smaller time frame, waiting for candles to close to catch this bullish move to the upside. But like I said, right at 7 o'clock, which is the second candle of the day on the 30-minute chart, I got in right here for calls and I rode them up. And then I took my profits and just got out. And as we saw, there was a pullback, but of course that's because Powell was talking today. So the markets was kind of adjusting for Jerome Powell talking, and we had FOMC, things like that. Yo, thank y'all for the likes. Interman, Long G 0830, Nick, James Mail, thank you for coming through. Thank you for coming through. So I'll put it right back again. This was in the Discord. I said I was in Google Calls. This was right at 7 o'clock West Coast time, as we can see here. Now, definitely, had I been trading on a lower time frame, maybe the 7 minute, maybe the 10 minute, the 15 minute, I could have got into this a lot earlier, especially with how strong this first opening candle was, but still was able to get in and secure some profits. So that was the long and short of it. But like I said, now for me, without giving too much into the bro strategy, with chart strategy, like I said, I drew this. Let me go to the daily chart. All right, so if you guys know me, and I'll go into my strategy. So my strategy is pretty simple, right? Even though this looks very terrible and it looks very lopsided. So to go over my strategy, right, I look for obvious trends, right? An obvious upward trend, an obvious downward trend, and I start off on the daily chart. So after I start off on the daily chart, I'll then go to a lower time frame. My favorite is the 30-minute. So what we see right here for Google, this is the daily chart. We see that at least for the past few days, even though we've had a couple of green candles, including today, we've got this very kind of obvious downward broadening formation that's starting to happen. And so I draw it out first on the daily chart, and then I go to the 30-minute really just to tighten it up. So it looks a lot better when you look at it on the 30-minute. So if you look at this kind of broadening formation on the 30-minute, you can see how we kind of come up to this resistance point, come on down. We come down to this little support zone, support and resistance, and then we kind of come back up to this resistance point, which is the top of the broadening formation. So that's why I knew to kind of, at least for me, I'm not saying I predicted anything, but at least for me and my trading strategy, as we got closer to the top of this broadening formation, it was easy for me to go ahead and say, let me take profits and get out, because I didn't expect for there to be much more opportunity for this to run. But I just want to break that down. He said, Dozer says, answer my question, Ninja. And that's not the way to get your question answered, though. Speaking like that, that's not the way to get your question answered. But let's see. All right. Any other comments? Sam says you missed the meat of the move. That's why I don't like the strat. That's exactly right. But I'm not talking about the strat. I keep the indicator on there, but I didn't use the strat for this. So me missing the move, I don't want to blame it on the strat. That's not the strat's fault. It may coincide with what you're saying. You definitely have a point. But I just keep the strat indicator on here because that's where I started to learn how to trade. So it's like my way of paying homage. But I didn't use the strat today to understand or to enter this. And maybe I did in my subconscious, but really the main point of the move really was looking at that we were on this kind of upwards bounce off of the support and resistance. Let me move this over. We're on this little bounce right here to the support and resistance, or the support zone. And then I was mainly basing everything on the top of this. Now, what I did even more so was, and this, it's all kind of subjective, right? I went back, you look into the past, right? You look left for your indicators. And what I saw over here was that right here back on July 8th, we have price come down here on the left-hand side of the screen. We have price come on down here. And then when it hit here, I looked at this as being a potential area for resistance. Now, if we take a little line, let me go ahead and grab a horizontal line for us, and we'll put it right in this area. Boom. Now, if we just bring it on over, look exactly what happened. That resistance came right into that area where I got out for profits, and then it bounced back down. And it's so crazy to me because I've met more and more traders that they say they like completely hone in to all technical analysis, and the technical analysis is really lined up with potentially what Powell's going to say, FOMC, things like that. And that's kind of what we saw, right? The way that they moved Google today brought it up to this support and resistance zone, or this resistance zone back here. And when I saw that while I was in the middle of the trade, it was kind of like my heads up, my indicator to be like, all right, let me go ahead and exit now, take these profits because we may not even get to the top of this broadening formation. But nothing crazy. That's really all my trading has been lately. It's just been either parallel channels, broadening formations, and then just using support and resistance. But yeah, no knock to the strat at all. Like I always like to pay homage to it because that's where I started to really get my footing with trading. So I kind of leave that indicator on there. But I will say, learning from Sam's plan, you make a good point, Sam's plan. I probably should turn the indicator off. And then if I ever get a question from like a beginner trader on where to start, maybe still just recommending the strat. But you're probably right. Because whenever I get on TikTok live and people see the strat indicators, there's always a comment about that. So big shout out to Sam's plan. And I think for the sake of just growing and progressing, getting out of my comfort zone, let me go ahead and turn off. What did I just turn off right quick? All right, where is the strat? The strat. Let's turn off that strat. Let's turn back on the 50% for the day. Boom, there we go. There we go. Thank y'all for the likes. Thank you for the likes, Mocha Ray. Big shout out to Mocha Ray. All right. HMP says take a look at SoFi. We'll jump over there in a moment. Thank y'all for the gifts. Simone Moon. All right. Shot by Jay. Thanks for coming through. Hey, Curtis, what do you think about AMD? All right. All right. What else we got? What else we got? Let me give a shout out to the top viewers. So, L315, big shout out to you. Love my ones. That's what's up. HMP 2318, of course, my guy. Thrift Shop for All, and Ryan M78665. All right, so let's do a little bit of charting. And I'm only going to chart based off of my strategy and my setup. And the reason why I'm doing that is to help discipline myself, give myself consistency, and to show other traders while you're looking at other tickers, see if the setup is lining up for you. Don't allow yourself to be swayed by what other people may be saying or what it may be looking like. If somebody happens to recommend a ticker or something for you to look at, see if it's lining up for your setup. So let me go ahead and close out a few of these. And let's go and open up. I think the first one was AMD. Thank you for the likes. Thank you so much for the likes, HMP. Thank you, Mocha Ray. Placeholder. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, we need a. Why is this like this? Little change on Trading View. Let's look at AMD. All right, so per request from HMP 2318, we're going to take a look at AMD. Of course, like I said, if you're just joining, I like to start off on the daily chart and I like to find an obvious trend. Now, for me, this is what AMD is looking like right now. And it doesn't appear to be an obvious trend that I like. It looks like we came up to a certain level of resistance here on this daily chart and that we might be getting ready to pull back down. Um, but other than that, if my eye doesn't automatically see something pretty obvious in terms of a trend, I probably would just keep it pushing. But because we do got the request, I do want to push myself a little bit more just to see if we could find something we could dig deeper. But as we can see on this daily chart, look, almost every day it just come up to that same point and came back down. So definitely a strong level of resistance here on the daily chart for AMD. Now, what you probably could do, which we don't know how long it will last, we can draw a horizontal straight across parallel channel. So we just do it kind of easy, or just two support and resistance zones. Let me go ahead and pull this right over here. Right. I actually like to draw the support and resistance zone as actual areas, but since this is pretty obvious with AMD, and I should probably make these different kind of color lines because I feel like they're almost hard to see. But long story short, we got AMD right here. And then what you might want to do is just kind of play that little support and resistance area that it's in. Obviously, when something trades like this, right, we know that it's consolidation. And the more that it consolidates or trades within a range for a longer period of time, is getting ready for a big breakout move. And what we do have coming up down here is earnings. So we could be prepared for some explosive earnings. They've got earnings in 2 weeks. And for all intents and purposes, I don't see why AMD might not perform well for their earnings. If we go back into the past a little bit, we could see that AMD could travel way over here way up. You know what I should do is bring this down so we can see the price as well. All right, somebody just followed. Let's see. Let's see. Give me just a moment, y'all. Let me get it back in. I just want to do it so we can see the price. I don't know why the numbers and my trading views gotten all kind of crazy, but all right, here we go. Now we're back in motion. All right, Rick's Blue Room, Rogue 888, Elio, thank you for coming through. Thank you so much for the likes, Smoker Ray. Appreciate you getting us past the 1K like mark. So the request was to look at AMD. We're currently looking at AMD on the daily chart, and we see that AMD is trading in this range, a kind of a tight range, if you will. So it's kind of consolidating, and they do got earnings coming up. So basically, what this is telling me is we're getting ready for an explosive move, of course, to the upside or the downside, right? So not too many directions that you can go when it comes to stock trading or options trading. But the interesting thing to me is in this moment right now, I don't see why AMD won't do well in terms of their earnings. But as we all know, I don't play earnings at the most. If I even do decide to touch it, I'm only going to catch some of that momentum to whatever side it goes. But what I will say is, in the meantime, in between time, if we continue to trade in this range, you might just want to play the support and resistance on both ends, right? So if price kind of comes down here into this area tomorrow, you may want to play some calls to the upside. And once price gets back up here, play some push to the downside, or you can use them as profit targets, right? That's the way I would look at it because we've been trading in this range for the past 1, 2, 3, 4 days, 4 days now. So just my initial thoughts on AMD doesn't quite go with my setup or my strategy. So more than likely, I probably wouldn't trade it, but that is an idea that comes to mind. Like I said, I like more of the straight up and down trend lines that you could find, and then trading based off of that. All right, placeholder. Thank you for those likes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love her 69. Just scalp earnings. That's what's up. Exactly. Exactly. We're on the same boat. We're on the same page. Catch that momentum. See which way the market is reacting. If the market sentiment is bearish after they release earnings and we see that momentum and that trend going, get in on that scalp. And if the market momentum is bullish or the sentiment is bullish after they release the numbers, then get up on those calls really, really quick. Get in and out. Don't play around and keep it pushing. But in terms of playing numbers or playing earnings before the numbers are released, I've been burned way too many times. And as we know with trading, the number one thing that we want to do is learn from our lessons in the past and don't make the same mistakes twice, right? We don't want to make the same mistakes over and over because obviously that's going to mess with your mental, is going to deplete your trading capital, and it's going to set you back. So for me, I had to learn the hard way with Netflix a few months ago. Don't even mess around with the earnings. All right, what else? What other requests do we have? Yo, Pablo Reynoso, thanks for coming through. Juan, I see you. All right, I love her 69 says, what broker do you use? I use both Robinhood and Webull. You can see Webull right here, right on my desktop. So those are the two that I use right now. I even have an account with Thinkorswim, but I don't use it often. All right, HMP 2318 says they want to take a look at SoFi. Let's see. Let's see if SoFi kind of fits in my setup. Let's see if SoFi fits in the setup. I appreciate y'all for rocking with me, man. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've been on. I've been traveling, got back to work. Work has been super busy. I've had nonstop meetings, no gaps really in the day. All right, we're taking a look here at SOFI, SoFi. Another thing that, oh, here. Ooh, whoa, 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 here we go. Here we go. SoFi's looking good. We got something. So we're looking at the daily chart right now on SoFi. It looks like we got some resistance points, right? Some support and resistance zones. I like this very obvious trend. I like the very obvious trend. So that's the first thing I like to see is a very obvious trend. And then what I like to do is from the what I perceive, right? We all know that charting is very subjective, but from what I perceive, I like to just start off on the daily time frame. I'll draw some rough trend lines or a rough parallel channel or a rough broadening formation, and I use the top of the wicks. And so there's no right or wrong answer. Some people like to just use the candle bodies. Some people like to use the wicks or the shadows. The only thing I would recommend is that you just stay consistent. If you're going to draw your trend lines, your parallel channels, or your broadening formations based off of the candle wicks or the shadows, then stay consistent with that. If you're going to use the candle bodies, then you just use that. Try not to flip flop because you want to start building that consistency. So, like I said, I build that rough trend line first. I got some old ones that I need to delete. So this is immediately what my eye sees. And then now the next thing I want to do is I break it down to a smaller time frame. Me personally, I like the 30-minute, and then I come to the 30-minute and I just tighten it up. I just tightened it up a little bit, but it looks like we got a nice kind of clean parallel channel starting here, or maybe broadening formation, right? I feel like they're like so closely related. But here we've got the 30-minute chart on SoFi. And then as we expand it out, you could kind of see. You could kind of see. So here we go from the beginning where price came down here, kind of hugged the bottom of that broadening formation. We gapped up, kind of came to the top. So this would have been a good opportunity here to take puts, but of course we might not have seen it if we didn't already draw the broadening formation. We come back down to this side, depending how close you want to play it or whatever you're using as your actionable signal. Let me go ahead. I don't know if is that Nicole Sam? Is she still in here? Let me go ahead and turn off the strat. Oops, not that one. Let me turn off the strat because I know lately we've had some questions or some comments about that. And then now we come up to this resistance zone. So me personally, what I would be looking for, especially if we go back in time with SoFi, we're still on this 30-minute chart. Man, I feel real awkward right now. I feel like I lost the vibe with y'all since I haven't been on live in a few weeks. But I want to kind of just bring this down and over. I'm gonna zoom it back out in a minute. But what we see here is a level of resistance from back in mid-June, almost a month ago to the date. We got resistance. And if we go back again, this was a resistance point. So what I would like to see based off of this kind of broadening formation that we've drawn a parallel channel, I would like to see, me personally, I would wait for price to either come up a little bit more before taking push to the downside, or just being very patient and wait for it to get near where this support zone is down here before taking puts for a bounce up to the upside. Very simple. Just using support and resistance in the trend lines. That's about it. All right. Abraham's TikTok. Thank you for the follow. Big shout out to HMP2318. I probably should have set this up so that we don't see all the icons at the bottom of the live. I feel like that's a little bit distracting. Let's see if we can bring it in a little bit more. Let's see if we can bring it in a little bit more. My bad, y'all. All right. Well, we won't go too crazy with it. Okay. Just thank you for the follow. L315. Thank you. Thank you. So that's what I see. Now, the only thing is, like I said, you might want to tighten it up. And then the next thing that I do in my strategy, right, is I at least want to see a couple of touch points on the trend lines, right? At least has to touch it a little bit. So we still had a little bit of gap or space to go, but I want to see a couple of touch points. So on the next touch point up here, and it may take to be patient, but on the next touch point where we get catching puts to the downside, and we know that kind of coincides with what we see in the past. I'm going to switch it back to the daily chart really quick, but we know what we see in the past, that is a support and resistance zone, right? We are right there. So we may see a push down. We may see a quick spike up tomorrow morning, like the first candle, 30 minutes, especially with all that volatility. We may see that spike up, hit the top of the trend line, and then push down, especially because who can see the obvious right here? What do we got going on with these candlesticks when it comes to SoFi? There's one thing that's very obvious that I see in these areas. All right, Toki Frank says Apple Ducker 378. This is SoFi, ticker symbol SOFI. This is ticker symbol SOFI. And essentially what I'm looking for is another little climb up towards the top of this trend line here, or the top of this broadening formation. And then once we get into this area, looking for puts and actionable signal, it could be based off a candlestick. It could be based off of this being an area of support and resistance. Once we get in there and we see that price starts to sputter a little bit, and then it'll come back down and take some push to the downside. Or if price happens to come back down closer to this line, let's break it down to that 30-minute. As we can see, if price happens to come back down here, hit a little bit of support, right? Maybe a little bit in this area, which does make sense if we look at it, right? We've got this level, which was the previous day high, this white line going across, which technically is in this support and resistance zone. So if price comes back down, which lands right on this line, which lands right where we needed to land, give or take a little bit for the price action, it'll be a strong indication for me to possibly take some calls. Simple as plain. Could we take a look at Tesla? Kind of messed up holding calls too long today. All right. EFFXT says risk management. Don't get greedy. Exactly. I don't know if you were on earlier, EFFXT, but I talked about that in my trade of the day with GOOG. I wasn't greedy at all. I kind of saw signs that we were hitting resistance and all that. So if you guys know me, you guys have been on my lives before. my sweet spot is about 10% of my profit targets. I'm not aiming for anything crazy. I try not to get too crazy because it's so easy to let greed let in. But for Ducker 378, if you don't mind being a little bit vulnerable and kind of telling us what happened with your Tesla, I don't mind going to check it out. I don't mind. And like I said, I appreciate y'all rocking with me. It's always a good time when y'all come through the live. All right, all right. EFFXT, thank you for the follow. Just thank you for the follow. Yo, Patrick Riley 8, thanks for coming through. All right, let me clear all my old drawings. As you guys can see, the last time I was charting Tesla was way back in, uh, well, not way back, but at least the last week of June. So I'm going to clear this out. Let's remove the drawings. And I kind of just want to zoom this in for us. That way we all can see all the information, right? Here we go. So now we can see the ticker symbol and we can see the pricing. Let me kind of bring it down a little bit. Now we have a lot more information. Okay. Kind of looks like the same thing with Tesla on this daily chart. Look at that. Isn't that crazy how powerful support and resistance is? Just look at this, y'all. Like, look, we had this resistance over here way back in December of 2023. Tesla came on down. It came back up to the same resistance level and is pulling it down. And it's a trip because there's so many strategies that work with trading, and we all know it's just mental. But you can keep it simple. You know, you don't have to have a super complicated strategy. You can do it based off of support and resistance, your trend lines, easy things like that. As long as you're being consistent and just sticking with your strategy, it'll work out. But of course, it's easier said than done, right? We know it's all psychological. But look, even back here, we had that resistance, support and resistance came down, support and resistance came down. And then, you know, here we are back again, support and resistance, which is a trip, right? It kind of makes me think about how, you know, the markets could be a little bit manipulated because wasn't there some slightly negative news that just came out about Tesla or something like that? Delay on some type of deliveries, or am I thinking about a different company? All right. EFFXC says first time here. You got a Discord or community I would like to join. Yeah, for sure. Check it out. Link in bio. Always open to any feedback. Whatever I can do to be or have a better community to give more value, I'm all for that. I'm all for it. So come through. You get the first 30 days free. If you're rocking with it, you can stay. Other than that, if you're not rocking with it, you can leave. No harm, no foul. I appreciate any good constructive feedback I can give to get better. All right, Hassan, what's up? Okay, so we're taking a look at Tesla. We got a member in the audience that had a Tesla trade. I think it was EFFXT. Hope you don't mind if I kind of put you on the spot there. So I'm not too sure. You said you kind of held on too long with your calls. So here we are looking at the daily chart. Looks like we had a gap up. So that would be a cause of, you know, maybe a little bit of concern for me. But let's break it down to the 30-minute. Well, first, let me take a step back. Let me take a step back and see if I would potentially chart this. And I kind of wouldn't. I would definitely chart this. Like I said, you guys have seen it. If you've been on the live for a little bit, I would definitely chart this obvious trend. But now we're kind of getting to a little bit of a shaky spot. What we do know is we have resistance. So that's the first thing I would kind of chart out. We do have resistance. Let's bring it on in. We do have a support and resistance zone. So that's obvious to me. So I always start with when it comes to my charting, I always start with like the most obvious things. That kind of helps me out, right? So this is what we see here. That kind of very obvious. And as we all know, right, charting is subjective. Boom. But look at that. Look how crazy that is. Little resistance, resistance. It came on down and resistance. And now we're coming back on down. So that's the first thing I would chart. And then my thoughts would be, because we do have this gap to the downside that needs to be filled, I'm thinking that quickly tomorrow, Tesla, through some form or fashion, will probably close this gap. They might even gap it down tomorrow morning somewhere in here, close it, and then decide how they want it to go. But we shall see what we shall see. So now that I got that easy support and resistance drawn, we're going to hit this young 30-minute. You don't have to use the 30-minute. I use the 30-minute because that's what I like to trade on. But if you like the 1 hour or the 4 hour or the 7-minute or the 15-minute, the only thing that I recommend if you want to take this approach is, obviously, as we all know, right? We've all heard it 1,000 times. Start off with a larger time frame and then zoom in and break it down, especially if you're more of a scalper or a day trader. So here we go. Now we're looking at Tesla. And like I said, for me, I would kind of come to a standstill here because the chart just as clear for me as I would like it to be. Now, the dope thing is some of y'all could look at this chart and already know what you're gonna do, what kind of move you would take. But for me, I don't quite see it. But if I was like Duck, is it I forgot which one it was. Yeah, it was Ducker 378. Ducker 378 said, "Could we take a look at Tesla? I kind of messed up holding calls too long today." So it depends. I don't know when you got in your calls, 378, Ducker 378, but I'm imagining if you got in your calls maybe on the first candle, the one thing I definitely would have been concerned about if you already charted it was this resistance zone that we had already established from back in December of 2023. I would have been concerned the more we crept up in here, this would have been cause for me to want to go ahead and exit and take profits before we saw the obvious move to the downside. And then, of course, you got to keep in mind, right? Jerome Powell spoke today, and when Jerome Powell spoke, we all know that could do anything to the market. And so, I typically like to trade around FOMC. I like to trade around Jerome Powell. Like, I don't want to, it's kind of like boxing. I don't want to be in the ring with Jerome Powell too long. You might get a knockout, but then he might just hit you with a knockout. All right, let's see. I don't know, Curtis. Never shows his earnings and profits at. All right, untrustworthy question mark. Let's see. Homewood Astro 1 just followed you. Yeah, the shit pops and drops anytime J Pal shows up. That's right. That's right. I gotta watch my language though. I have to watch my language. Excuse me. All right. All right. Uh-huh. And two, I think it was, let me just see. Yo, what's going on, Homewood Astro? Uh Chris Burrow 06 saying I never show earnings or profits. I show everything every time. Like I always show my screenshots. I always put my trade confirmations. I always put everything about it, whether it's embarrassing or not. I mean, if you guys have been on my TikTok, you guys know I've shown some pretty embarrassing things. So, um, I actually have my tax statements, all that kind of stuff are in the Discord. You could join for free for 30 days. Click on the link and you guys can see all my embarrassing stuff. I don't try to front. I'm not trying to tell you I'm making thousands of dollars a month. Typically, when people ask me, like, on average right now, I'm making about, well, I got to be careful. Last time I talked like this, I got banned from TikTok Live. That's part of the reason why I haven't been on. So I have to kind of choose my words carefully. But what I will say is I don't have a problem showing screenshots and things like that. All right. All right. But yeah, got to keep the tech going. Got to keep the tech going. All right. BFRU92. Thanks for coming through. Omaha Sizzle. User 180118. Thanks for coming through. So we were just taking a look at Tesla. So I hope that gave a little bit of insights to you, Ducker 378. The number one thing I probably, going back to the daily chart, right? If I had already had this charted out, this upward trend, I may have been in a trade or maybe not because it had already broke the upward trend on the daily chart. So I may, even if I had had this charted out, I probably would not have traded. And we do got some gaps down here to the downside that need to be filled. So Tesla may be on a little come down. No, don't expect that, right? We only want to trade what's happening, but we just want to be aware of some of the things that are out there. But to your point, right? You said you held the calls too long. The only thing that would have really gave me pause or would have given me the heads up was the already charted support and resistance right here on Tesla. If I was in a trade, this would have been the thing that I would have been looking out for, was that support and resistance to get out, especially as we climb towards the top of this zone. That would have definitely been an indication to me right there. All right. Oh, snap. Hold on. Hold on. Are you still in your calls? Oh, no. I thought I was taking that like you had got out of the trade. I was taking that like you had got out of the trade for sure. Um, I was taking that like you got out of the trade. Homewood Astro says you just started investing, bought Nvidia. How long ago did you buy Nvidia? Nah, dude, I'm still in. It's over for me, man. No. Oh, I hate to hear it, bro. I hate to hear it. I was hoping you say you got out. The way I interpreted your message was like you had profits and most of your profits were vanished or diminished because of how the end of the day ended, right? We got this bearish shooter right here. So I was hoping you were still like, a little bit above flat or you still have some profits that you can go ahead and take, if the market doesn't open up crazy. All right, George says, what about Microsoft? All right, let's take a look at Microsoft. So, like I said, my eyes are going to look at it from my strategy, my setup. I want to kind of encourage people to lean on their own strategy to see if it fits you. Pardon me. And as we can see, the last time I had charted Microsoft, it was right here in this kind of parallel channel that I charted. Broke out a little bit, but still kept up. And now we've got this almost nice, obvious downtrend that appears to have hit some support and resistance in the last couple of days. So what I'll do is I'll start off with some fresh charting. Let's get rid of these drawings. And this might be a little premature, but we shall see what we shall see. And like I said, if you're just joining, I start off with a daily time frame. I draw a very, very, very rough parallel channel or broadening formation. Very, very rough. And then the next thing you want to do, you don't have to do this in any particular order. This is just how I do it. I kind of want to find, support and resistance zones. But of course, a lot of things lately have been hard to find those zones because we're in all-time highs. So you have to kind of go back in the past and see where the last SR zones were. So like this is the obvious one down here. You might even consider this a little bit, but it's a little choppy. But you can always change time frames too to help you find these different zones, right? So if you can't see it on the daily time frame, don't hesitate to go up to the weekly or the 2 day or whatever the case may be to help you find those different zones. But then the next thing I do is I'll go down to the 30-minute. As you guys know, I love that 30-minute. And then you might want to just clean it up a bit, or you could keep it like this, right? Because it doesn't necessarily break. So what we see is it came to the top of this kind of downward parallel channel, came down, resistance came down. And so what I would like to see, right? What I would like to see from Microsoft is probably for it to come on down. Maybe if we find some more support and resistance, right? Right down into this area before kind of taking calls to the upside. Or if we continue to follow this kind of trend here, if we happen to spike up around here tomorrow, then I'll look for puts to the downside. But keep all in mind, I'm speaking from a context or a mind frame of being a scalper or a day trader, real fast in and out, not necessarily holding these for a swing trade. You might want to do a slightly different analysis, right? Because as we could see from the last time I charted this out, it could break out of that trend at any moment. It could break out of this at any moment. So I'm just looking at it from the context of a quick scalp or a day trade, looking for if it comes down into here, this looks like support, right? Comes down into this area, taking some calls up. And then if it gets up into this area, just taking the puts down. But the next thing I will kind of want to do, and it doesn't seem as clear to me. I don't quite like it, but I might want to do a little. It looks like we're in a support and resistance zone. And if it seems too simple, like don't knock it, right? You want your strategy to be simple. One thing I was reminded of is they've done a study. I want to find it for y'all. I like to come with the receipts and links and things for y'all to check out. But I'm pretty sure all of us experienced this at some point. Doesn't it seem like at some point when you were at the beginning of your trading journey, when you really didn't know much, it seemed like it was a lot easier to make money, right? Some of us might call it lady luck. Some of us might call it whatever. But there's been studies done that show there are a lot of cases where the people that have the least amount of knowledge about how all this works typically fare out better than those of us that have spent so much time learning all these different concepts, all this different technical analysis. So don't be afraid if your charting or your analysis appears to be very simple, because simple technically is where the money is at. So this does appear to be a little tricky though on the support and resistance that we drew. I feel like everything's just a little tight on this 30-minute chart for Microsoft. So that makes me hesitant. But I would like to see, like I said, something come up here to take puts back down or to come up here and take calls up. But either way, I think price action is going to struggle to get through this zone. Right? It's going to come down here, or it's going to be up here, right? At one point, it would take puts to the downside and it'll struggle in here, which would be an indication once it starts struggling to go ahead and get out, especially if you got profits or if you're at a loss. If we take the calls to the upside, once it gets in here, it might struggling. As we can see, it might start struggling. It might start struggling as we can see. All right, all right. Homewood Astro says, I like your technique. Savage Hot Dog 987, what's your indicator? I'm not too sure. I don't have any indicators on right now on this chart. This is just support and resistance with a parallel channel that was drawn that we charted out, but there's no indicators on right now. I appreciate you, Homewood Astro. All right, all right. Thank you for the follow. And then let's take a look at SPY. HMP 2318. Thanks for rolling back through. We'll take a look at SPY right quick. I appreciate y'all for rocking with me, for running up those likes. I appreciate it a lot. I was looking at SPY earlier today, but just didn't see anything that was appetizing. Let me clear all of this out. And let's go back to the daily. Now, this chart does have an indicator on it that I use every day. It's the SSS 50% indicator. And all it does is it marks out the previous day high, which you can see right here, the previous day low, which you can see down here, and then the right in the middle 50% of where the price traveled on the previous day. And in this case, it was Friday. Now, the reason why I like it is because for the most part, not 100%, not every single time, but for the most part, on a day to day basis, price is going to acknowledge or respect one of these three levels, right? As we can see here, it kind of bounced off the 50% and then it used the previous day high. Even though it broke up a little bit above it, it did break up a little bit above. It kind of used the previous day high as almost a resistance zone. I'm not, we can clearly see it broke up way above it, but still, it really didn't close above it, right? And I bet you if we look at some of these other time frames, you might see a little bit of that resistance play out more. But even though, so this is the first thing that I'm seeing, and I'll do this one more time. Very easy on the strategy. I take the daily chart and I just draw a very rough, ugly trend line on the top side and the bottom side, right? So we'll either make a parallel channel or we'll make a broadening formation. It's very ugly, just disgusting on the daily chart, right? And then I like to come down to the 30-minute to kind of clean it up. And as we see, like when you come down to the 30-minute, it looks a lot better. All right, you just come down, clean it up just a bit on that 30. As we can see, I mean, obviously it's kind of like cherry picking, but we can see it. But what I'm looking for is just to follow the same kind of trend or pattern. All right. Looking for a touch up here to take puts to the downside, a touch down here to take calls to the upside. And then we always want to acknowledge, right, wherever the support and resistance zone are. So we got resistance here and resistance here and resistance here. 3 points of resistance that we could chart out. Let's chart it out. So it may acknowledge this resistance tomorrow, and we may not break below it, especially because we're in this crazy all-time highs for the market. But we already are below. So there we go. We already are below, which is good. So I feel more confident. It would be nice if this line was already closer to intersecting. But anyways, I would feel confident if price kind of comes down here. Let's see. If price was to come down in this area along this line to take calls to the upside, which would be perfect because this then would act as a resistance zone, right? So if price kind of comes down on this line tomorrow, looking for an actionable signal, whatever that is for you, whether it's like the VWAP or a candlestick pattern or whatever the case may be. Once we touch on this line, look for your actionable signal, take calls to the upside, and then I would technically, depending on how the price is looking tomorrow, where it's at tomorrow, use this support and resistance zone that we charted out as a profit target or a PT. And that's the long and short of it. All right. Yo, yo, yo. Is that Mithershini? I just want to pronounce it correctly. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Ducker says, where do we have support? Okay, let's see. Where do we have support? I see support right in this area. Do you see that? We're on the 30-minute chart right now. So on the 30-minute chart, this is where I could see support being something like that. But it all depends on your time frame. Like this could even be a little support area too, which it kind of was if we're looking at the daily 50% for the previous day. So it all depends on your horizon. If we're talking about day trading or scalping. So if we're looking at this from like a day trade scalping arena, this is what I see. Right? Yeah, because this is all-time highs. So we're not going to see anything in the past. We're not going to see anything in the past. So these would be like the first initial ones. Something like that. Let's see. And this could be another area too. I try not to muddy up the chart too much. And like as we all know, it goes without saying, like all of this is subjective, right? It's all subjective, and that's what kind of makes it hard. If it wasn't subjective, trading would be a lot different. But I would be looking, even right here, like these little, oh, you guys can't see it, but even these little blips over here. I just sometimes I get a little hesitant. I try to find the strongest areas where the most like activity was going on, right? We have the most activity, even though we had a little bit here. It kind of strikes me as not being as strong as these areas where we had a lot of like activity where these candlesticks struggled to kind of get in and out. So those would be the levels that I see. Yep. Bro trying to turn me into liquidity. Yep, makes sense. Everything is about turning people into liquidity. No matter where you are, it's liquidity everywhere. That's what I be seeing a lot of times on people's videos. It'd be so funny. Somebody be like, yo, here's this strategy. Like, no, he's trying to turn you into liquidity. But that's the crazy thing about trading, right? Like all of these different strategies have their own like pros and cons on how they work or how they didn't work. But I will say from day one, the one thing that has never really changed, has never really faltered, is trend lines and support and resistance. You just got to get better, in my opinion, at drawing them because it is a very subjective thing, and of course, it comes with experience, and it all comes with the time frame that you're trading on too. Because we're looking at the 30-minute time frame, but it might be easier to identify support and resistance on a daily time frame. All right, if we go to the daily, oh look at that. Even if we switch to the daily, look at that. Support and resistance, boom. And it becomes easier to see on certain time frames. And look, we drew these out on the 30-minute. We drew these out on the 30-minute, but what we can see, look at the top of this bullish candle, this bearish candle resistance. Look at how this one came right up here, this bullish shooter. So that's just kind of how I look at it. I would say prices here. If we were, let's just say it's guaranteed we are moving down, then the next level, in my opinion, would be down here in this range. And I'll highlight it so we can see it in this 556 to 557. If it was guaranteed, if we knew for sure we were coming down, then I would be confident that we would probably be coming down into here because we're already in this support and resistance zone. So we probably come down here. That's just if it was guaranteed that we knew we were coming down tomorrow. But if you switch it on the different time frames, you can see like right in here, support and resistance, a little shaky there. We got a gap to the downside that needs to be filled. That's scary. I Nice wick too. Exactly. That's crazy how these wicks was working out in terms of these support and resistance zone. That's just tripping me out right there. It went right to the top. I mean, obviously we charted it on the 30-minute, but just look at it, just right there. Boom. All right. The sun and black circle emoji. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. But all right. I just wanted to tap in with y'all, show y'all love because you guys always show me love. I'm gonna get back on it. Like I said, I was on vacation and out of town, and then when I got back, work got super busy. But I'll be back to these daily lives, and of course, you guys can check out the YouTube channel or any other social media platform if you want more content or things like that. If you got questions, just shoot them to me. I'm all about sharing information wherever I find it. And like I said, if you are a new trader and you want a very simple, like, if you didn't really like my strategy, which is fine, I'm not, no harm, no foul. We all have different strategies, but if you're looking for something else that's very tangible, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, you can go to this guy right here, Charts, on Twitter. Super dope, super good. He breaks down 7 easy steps and rules that you can do every single day. You check off step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6, step 7. He has 7 steps, gets you right into the trade or tells you not to take a trade. It's probably one of the most simplest strategies I've ever seen in my life that literally tells you exactly where to enter and where to exit. But I don't want to step on his toes. I just like to show love. I'm not a gatekeeper. So if you are a new trader or if you're just looking for a strategy where you can have a checkoff list and it's just easy for you to understand, go check out Charts on Twitter, Mr. Opening Price. Dude will hook you up. Or you could just check him out. Look at people that rock with him. And I'm not plugged in. I'm not getting paid by him. We don't share a Discord community. We're not anything like that. I don't get any kickbacks or no feedback. I just don't gatekeep. Whenever I'm learning something new, I share it with y'all because you guys have always shared new information with me. So it's only right that, we keep it going. All right, y'all. Thank you for the follows. Thank y'all for the likes, and I'll tap in with y'all soon.